We've brought these men here all these years later to commemorate how the Winston-Salem Rescue Mission was founded. It was 1966. These 5 young pastors then were driving to a faraway pastor school and had lots of time to talk. Sitting just as they sat in that car a half-century ago, we've asked them to reminisce here in this empty auditorium today.
I told them God laid something on my heart, and I wasn't sure what it was, whether it was a rescue mission or an orphanage or exactly what it was.
And I said something to Brother John after that. We looked like need a rescue mission here in Winston. Hugh Epperson had just come here, opened a radio station.
Over the years, many have called on Stu and Nancy Epperson for leadership. In 1966, Stu arranged a founding meeting for the rescue mission.
We talked about the mission, and we elected officers, and I was elected president. Decided we needed to get a director, someone to run the rescue mission.
The man they chose was Neil Wilcox, a young man who came up from Bob Jones University with a compelling motivation.
I never saw my dad, and he never saw me. And when I started the rescue mission, I wanted every man that came in to be treated just like I would want my dad treated if he came in.
And so a lease was signed for a building a block or so from the present New Life Center. The building needed renovations. Neil and Barbara would live above the mission.
Winston-Salem was not then what it is today. It was not a place that you wanted to go to at night.
Preacher Floyd Brown played great piano and became Neil's most dedicated volunteer that first year. But soon another young graduate from Bob Jones would join the mission. Ernie Mills was the right man to be Neil's right-hand man. He stayed 5.5 years. Then in 1973, the Lord, working through a man named R.P. Reese, gave the former Lawrence Hospital to the rescue mission. It had been turned into an apartment building and required massive renovations that would stretch mission resources and take a year. And from the Christian Businessmen's Association, the revolving illuminated cross, erected in the fall of 1975. The new building allowed space for seniors' foster care for older, destitute men. With its second private entrance, the new building also permitted a ladies' division for a time.
He started walking behind me, and all the cows started coming with her.
In the 70s, the mission found a way to own 27 acres of farmland in Davie County.
Some of our butcher hogs.
Farming raised money for the mission, but zoning prevented establishing permanent quarters. Men had to come out from the city and go back again every day. The mission's 25th anniversary in 1992. By then, the Lawrence Hospital building had been renovated, the building next door had been acquired, and the thrift store had been set up across the street.
Camp Ashman Acres is located just off of 601.
And it was perfect for the Winston-Salem Rescue Mission.
This is still the entrance road.
110 acres, 4 times the size of the farmland they now owned.
This is the entrance to the lodge,
which would be permanent accommodation. Men could stay here, away from the temptations of the city. The lodge building at Alpha Acres today. It's even more beautiful. 3 lakes on the property, a retreat where troubled men can learn to have a personal relationship with the Lord. From 1966 and the mission opening in 1967, the years clicked by for the Wilcox family. But after 30 years, Reverend Wilcox needed a heart bypass. It was time to pass the baton from Neil and Barbara to their longtime friends. Dan and Ann Parsons would take over. Dan, with his business background, had his work cut out for him.
I realized that it was complicated for the men that really wanted to get their life together. They were staying and living with men that wanted 2 hots and a cot. The men that really wanted to try and do well were being brought down by the ones that did not want to do well.
And so the mission began its biggest challenge ever.
The Winston-Salem Rescue Mission is a Christian non-denominational service ministry meeting the physical, emotional, and spiritual needs of hurting people in the Triad.
A recent survey showed that all the shelters in our city that housed homeless men were overcrowded and stretched to the limit. But yet there's still more men out there on the streets. We must have a program that helps these men change their lives.
It was a big project. The Oak Street building would be completely renovated, where new residents could stay for 90 days. And the new Life Center would be a separate place for men truly serious about changing their lives. There were many obstacles to overcome. Dan lost his wife's mother and a week later his own father. Then he had a quadruple heart bypass. The funding campaign fell far short of rapidly rising costs. The existing mission was not renovated. But the new Life Center was built. Finally, a place where serious men could spend an entire year building their relationship with God. And as Dan would say, God used me to build that building.
I think it's just amazing to see how God works through the lives of these men.
I think of one man particularly. He had literally walked all the way from Rochester, New York to Winston-Salem. He said he had to go back to New York to become a father to his kids.
That was Harry Schultz, who, after 4 years at the mission, went back to his family in Rochester and to work for the mission there. The need is ever expanding. So many men have been helped over the years. Sometimes they come to us later in life. Sometimes they're with us only a short time. Each has his own story. And in most cases, each has no one in his corner. We heard that from John Hutcherson, who went through our 90-day and then our 1-year program.
I was homeless, jobless, and hopeless when I got here in 2013. I've been holding some pretty big grudges against my family, and we had like a 15-year rift. But now I am reconnected with my mom and dad and my kids, my brother and my sisters, and it's great. I thought that I would never work again because of the problems I was having with my back, but the mission came to me and offered me a job. So I got hired, and I've had 2 promotions in the little over 2 years since I graduated. And I didn't really seek any of that. God gave it to me because I did what he said.
Luke Money, like John, was a resident to start. Then he became Alpha Acres chaplain, then manager. He played a key role with Alan Carson, for whom graduating barber school is both a dream and a goal. After a tortured life of adoption from Costa Rica as a child, of being bullied, of dealing drugs, of abandoning his family, stints in prison, Alan's parole officer mistakenly took him to Alpha Acres instead of Trade Street, where a moment with Luke changed his life.
I went inside Luke's office and I started talking to him about Jesus Christ, and he asked me if I had ever talked to God. And I explained to him how I spoke with God while I was in county jail, and he looked at me and he said, I want you to really talk to God. He said, I want you to tell him how you feel, and I want you to accept him into your heart. I started to really break down, and I gave my life to the Lord that day. It was amazing. I stood up and I gave Luke a hug, and I think that's the first point in my life that I had ever felt real love from anyone. And Luke showed me what God was all about.
Not every rescue mission story ends as we might hope. Yet even in the profound sadness in these 30 acres of used cars and parts, the Lord's at work.
More people are learning how much money they can make by selling us their car or scrap metal.
This is the story of Rob Young, told to us by his dad, Bob Young.
If you have an old car, dial 788-9122.
Hey, where's Bob?
Haven't seen him.
The commercial where he tied me up in the back of the car was just awesome.
He loved people. He wanted to be everybody's friend.
He was a very free spirit.
But he dislocated his shoulder snowboarding.
After he had the first dislocation, his shoulder was sensitive. One time he was closing the gates out here and he got shocked and that dislocated it again. One time he was walking down the steps at a girlfriend's house and he slipped and grabbed the rail with that arm and that dislocated it again. In a 3.5-year period, he had 9 dislocations and 4 surgeries.
It started out that he was on oxycodone, then that wasn't helping, so they gave him something stronger like OxyContin, and then it went to Opana.
The painkillers had just consumed him, and I had to get the police to come here and handcuff him and take him to the hospital.
Young Rob entered Alpha Acres, was saved and baptized, but he left early when a girlfriend seemed to need him more than he thought he needed Alpha Acres.
I got the phone call that he was in the emergency room again, and I was on the fence of whether I should go or not because we had been so many times, and we would just patch him up and bring him home, and that time we didn't bring him home.
A year ago this month, we lost our son Rob, but thanks to Almighty God and the awesome care he received from the Winston-Salem Rescue Mission, we know we will see him in heaven someday.
In memory of Rob's life and the help he received from the Winston-Salem Rescue Mission, during the month of January, 109 U Pullet will donate 5% of part sales to the mission. Stop by and help us help those in need, or simply donate in Rob's memory.
Every year now, we give 5% of our January sales to the Winston-Salem Rescue Mission. Right now, that's the air I breathe and the ground I stand on is the fact that he was saved and baptized when he left this earth. I do okay. I still have moments when I'm just kind of lost. I've got through it, but I just can't imagine the place I'd be in if it hadn't been for the awesome work of the mission and the things they did in his life at Alpha Acres.
For half a century now, the rescue mission has been central to Winston-Salem.
We are celebrating an amazing 50 years of ministry here in Winston-Salem. God has given us a real passion to help restore people in need. But this story is not all about us. It's about a community who cares more for others than for themselves. From our city government, to businesses, to our churches, to our many donors and volunteers, to individuals, along with our faithful board and staff. Thank you for your generous support.
The need doesn't disappear. It's as pressing now as it's ever been. There are 2 pillars to our work in Winston-Salem. The recovery programs where men live with us for first 90 days and then 1 year, and our community outreach services that help our neighbors throughout the area. For some reason, many people think of us as a homeless shelter. We don't have a homeless shelter yet. We have the New Life Center on Trade Street and our newly refurbished, reclaimed off Trade Street store. The Rescue Mission Administration and the former hospital buildings out of sight behind it. The Neil Wilcox Center and the Client Choice Food Pantry. There's often a lineup at the Neil Wilcox Center or for the food pantry right beside it. There you go. We have bag lunches for the homeless or groceries to go. When it's all added up, there are about 850 meals a day provided in one way or another by the Rescue Mission. And the stories. Just ask Bob about that 8-year-old boy.
I get a call from Angela. She's a local counselor here in town. So she brings down little Arthur. He's sitting in the back seat, in the child seat, and he's not talking. But I teach 2nd and 3rd graders right now, and I can't get him to respond. Social services, all the different services determined he hadn't eaten in 36 hours. He'd been drinking, but not eating. He had lost everything. His family's house burnt to the ground. We get him a lot of food. We load up the back of her car. I take this bag, it was Cocoa Puffs, and I place it in his hand. There it goes. Hadn't said anything, but he looked up to me and he said, "Thank you." I had to turn around and I bawled my eyes out. It's that reason why I do what I do.
Don't have medical care? The mission cares. We can help with both medical and dental for those who need it.
My blood pressure is 106/64, and that's good.
The clothes closet in the old hospital building on Oak Street.
It's saving my life. I'll tell you that much.
For hundreds of our fellow citizens, the clothes closet is a godsend. 2 or 3 dozen clothing items a day are dispensed here.
Go ahead.
Donna's a volunteer. So much of what the rescue mission does runs on the loving work of volunteers.
In memory of my father was a big supporter of the rescue mission. Retired and was looking for something to do. I thought, well, this is the perfect place to be.
Like I said, giving back what they done for me, giving back to people. Like I said, I know everybody have a hard time.
And so many look out for the rescue mission. This new roof went onto the Neil Wilcox Center because of an anonymous donation from doctors. And the Client Choice Food Pantry is clean and bright thanks to help from the Center Grove Baptist Church.
God is always our supply for everything, and we've never had to beg for help. All we do is make the need known, and this community stands up. As we look to the future, we invite you to continue with us as monthly donors to help provide for increased services with your help.
Ken and the board see several opportunities for services, an alumni association so graduates can better help and support current residents, a mentoring program. Once they graduate, they need somebody who can walk alongside them and help them get ready for work, job placement. For graduates, the next step's employment, which is the foundation for getting them housing, a separate residence for women, for whom there are now very few resources available. And yes, we see a need for an emergency shelter for men to meet the short-term needs of those not yet ready for the present 90-day program.
These men are God's children. He loves them, and Christ died for them. And I think it's an opportunity for us to work with them, to be involved with their lives, to help their lives be transformed.
Take a quick look at Reclaimed off Trade Street, our store. The fact is, we'll reclaim it from whomever would donate it to us. Some of our men are pretty good at freshening up merchandise. For many of our neighbors, the store is a valuable source of things they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford. And lots of volunteers help out here too. The former hospital on Oak Street is where men first come to get their feet back underneath them. First 90 days are here. Men can get a sense of where they're going in life. The New Life Center is the separate place for the serious guys who live here for a year, working on their relationship with God.
All right, let's go before our Lord.
What I regret most is not taking advantage of my church background, my early life as a teenager. And the consequences that I paid for that was an estranged relationship with my children.
And finally, to round out our ministry, a quick glimpse of Alpha Acres, a rural setting where men can also spend up to a year away from the temptations of the city.
You're such an encouragement to this ministry, and we cannot do this without you. In fact, we need you now more than ever before. Thank you for your partnership with us to impact this city with the power and love of Jesus Christ to change lives, past, present, and future.